I'm Anna Peterson, 35, criminal defense attorney in Nashville, Tennessee. I've argued in front of federal judges, cross-examined murderers, and won cases no one thought I could. But this morning, sitting at my own dining table, with the smell of bitter almonds drifting up from my coffee cup, I froze, because I knew what Alexander had done. He placed the cup in front of me like it was a love offering. His fingers brushed mine. He smiled that curated, polished smile he uses at work and with guests. The same smile he wore the day I got promoted, and he didn't. The same smile I saw 3 months ago, hovering over me in the hospital after the doctors called it food poisoning. "Drink up, honey," he said, easing into the chair across from me. His mother, Eleanor, perched neatly at the head of the table between us, still in her pale blue robe, hair perfectly sprayed despite the early hour. "It's getting cold," she said, eyes narrowed. "Alexander went to such trouble." Her voice is like broken glass, delicate, sharp, always cutting. She's been living with us for 6 months now, ever since her accident. A broken hip that became a convenient excuse to never leave. She says it's temporary. She says she's healing. But she watches me like a warden watches an inmate. I lifted the cup slowly, letting the steam hit my face. It should have smelled like cinnamon or hazelnuts, something familiar and harmless. But this had that sweet chemical sharpness, an undertone that twisted my gut. That haunted smell memory you're never supposed to smell, unless something's gone very, very wrong. I didn't sip. I looked at Alexander instead. His eyes were locked on my mouth. His hands clenched the edge of the table, knuckles bone white. If a stranger had walked in, they might have said he was tense, nervous about something. But I knew better. "I need to use the bathroom," I said calmly, placing the cup back down, careful not to spill. Alexander blinked. "Of course, dear." But there was a flicker panic disappointment before he recovered. As I stood and walked away, I felt Eleanor's gaze on my back, drilling holes between my shoulder blades. The moment I shut the bathroom door behind me, I braced against the sink. My hands trembled, not from fear, from rage. 3 months ago, I spent 5 days in a hospital bed, vomiting blood, my vision blurred, barely conscious. The doctors chalked it up to severe gastritis or food poisoning, but I hadn't eaten anything strange, not unless you count the tea Alexander brought me after the firm offered me senior partner, a promotion he'd been passed over for, again. That same week, I found a receipt in his wallet from a chemical supply company. When I asked, he laughed. "Photography stuff," he said. "I'm thinking of starting a hobby." A hobby with cyanide. He never bought a camera. Last Thursday, I caught Eleanor snooping through my laptop while I was in the shower, claimed she was checking her email. But she has her own MacBook, the one Alexander gifted her. She never needed to use mine. Every time I've tried to confront him to bring it up, he pivots, guilt trips, or worse, gaslights me. "You're always tired. Anna, maybe you should cut back at work. Maybe the pressure's getting to you. Maybe I should be the one working full-time if this is too much." I splash water on my face and stare at my reflection. I'm pale, gaunt. My collarbones protrude more than they should. Over the last few months, I've lost weight without trying. I've been tired, nauseous, dizzy even. I chalked it up to stress. From the promotion, from Eleanor's constant shadow, from Alexander's increasingly passive-aggressive jabs. But maybe it wasn't stress at all. My skin's still damp. I return to the dining room. Eleanor and Alexander are whispering. Their heads tilt toward each other like co-conspirators. They pull apart quickly when they see me. "Everything all right?" Alexander asks, flashing that brittle smile. "Perfect," I say. I pick up my coffee cup again. I don't drink. Instead, I turn to Eleanor. "You look tired," I say, voice soft. Would you like some coffee? Alexander made plenty. She blinks. Oh, I couldn't. I smile wider. But you love coffee, don't you? You always say nothing gets your blood moving in the morning like a strong brew. Let me get you a cup. Alexander's eyes narrow. Anna, I insist. I say, already rising. In the kitchen, I find 2 identical mugs in the cabinet. I pour coffee from the same pot Alexander used for mine. This batch smells normal warm, rich, nutty, not a trace of almond, not a trace of poison. I carry the cup back and place it in front of Eleanor. Then, pretending to adjust my napkin, I switch our cups. There you go, I say, settling back in. Eleanor lifts the mug, inhaling. Delicious. Alexander, you should make coffee for me more often. Alexander doesn't reply. He's staring at me now with a look I've never seen before. Not annoyance, not resentment. Pure, undiluted hatred. Anna, he says, his voice tight. Why don't you drink your coffee? You said you were tired. I am, I say, lifting the new cup to my lips. This smells amazing. I take a long, slow sip. It tastes like coffee. Nothing more. Nothing less. Across the table, Eleanor is gulping hers down, making little appreciative noises. This is so good, she says. What's your secret, Alexander? Alexander's face has turned the color of ash. He's not blinking. His hands tremble slightly on the tablecloth. Mom, maybe you shouldn't. Shouldn't what? Eleanor snaps. Finally enjoy something my son made about time. She raises the cup again and drinks. A minute later, her hand starts to tremble. She sets the mug down with a clatter. Her breathing quickens. Her cheeks flush deep red. I don't feel right, she whispers. Alexander bolts up from his chair. Mom, how much did you drink? Most of it, she gasps. Why, what's... She never finishes the sentence. Her body seizes. The chair tips backward. She crashes to the floor, unmoving. Alexander screams, drops to his knees beside her. No, you weren't supposed to drink that. The words hang in the air like confession, sharp, final. I stand slowly, pulling my phone from my pocket. My hand is steady. I'm calling 911, I say, my voice quiet. Alexander grabs my arm, his grip bruising. Wait, Anna, you don't understand. I understand perfectly, I say, shaking him off. My voice stays even, ice over fire. You've been poisoning me. And that's when the front door opens. I turn and see Paul, my brother-in-law, standing there with his camera equipment. He was supposed to film a family legacy video today, and he was early. I meet his eyes. The wireless mic was already recording. Paul stood frozen in the doorway, the camera bag still slung over his shoulder. His eyes darted from Eleanor's collapsed body to Alexander's panicked crouch beside her, then to me standing tall, phone still in hand. The silence was suffocating. All you could hear was Eleanor's shallow, uneven breathing. Then Paul finally spoke. What happened? I turned toward him slowly. She drank the coffee, the one Alexander made for me. Paul blinked. Wait, what? She wasn't supposed to. But I switched the cups. My voice didn't shake. I wasn't trying to sound heroic, just truthful, blunt, even, because at this point, dressing it up wouldn't change what happened. Alexander stood now, hands held out like a man trying to stop a wildfire with empty palms. It's not what it looks like. Paul didn't move. He just looked at the mic pack in his hand, the one he'd clipped on before entering, to test sound levels. It had been recording from the hallway. I got all of that, he muttered, eyes wide. Let me take you back. 6 months earlier, Eleanor moved in after she fractured her hip slipping on ice outside her church. Alexander insisted we take her in. It's just for a few weeks, he said. She can't manage alone. Except a few weeks turned into months. And she didn't just rest. She embedded, took over our kitchen, our living room. She had opinions on the curtains, on my work hours, on the length of my skirts. She didn't ask. She told. And Alexander, he didn't just allow it, he enabled it. "Come on, Anna. She's old. She's lonely. Give her a break." But I was the one being broken day by day. It was subtle at first. Backhanded comments at dinner. Well, my generation knew how to keep a home tidy and hold down a job. Criticizing the food I cooked. Then throwing it away behind my back. Telling Alexander I seemed off lately. Tired. Moody. She started suggesting I see someone. A doctor. A therapist. And Alexander started agreeing with her. "Maybe it's stress," he'd say. "You've been a bit sharp lately." Sharp, that's rich. Coming from a man who once called my client a stupid junkie under his breath during trial prep. I thought it was just Eleanor trying to assert dominance, a power play. But then I started getting sick. Random nausea, dizziness, headaches. I chalked it up to work pressure, hormones, lack of sleep. But something felt wrong. Not just physically. It felt orchestrated, like my life was being slowly unraveled. The promotion was the breaking point. My firm had been dragging their feet for 2 years. I did the grunt work, stayed late, won difficult cases, managed impossible clients. Finally, they named me senior partner. I came home floating radiant with disbelief and pride. Alexander's face, when I told him, forced joy, the kind where the corners of the mouth go up, but the eyes stay flat. "Wow," he said. "That's great. Really." Then, the killer line. "Guess they're trying to meet their diversity quota this year." That was when something inside me cracked. Not like a twig, more like glass under pressure. Silent, but lethal. The next morning, he brought me tea in bed. I was already queasy. I took one sip. It was bitter, metallic. I pushed it away. By evening, I was in the ER. "Food poisoning," they said. "Maybe something undercooked." I hadn't eaten out, but I had sipped that tea. I started watching him closely after that. One night, I went through his coat pockets while he was showering, found a receipt from Chemtech Supplies, a lab-grade chemical distributor. I teach intro chemistry at the community college on weekends. I know that name. I know what they sell. When I asked, he waved it off. "For photography chemicals," he said, smiling, thinking of setting up a darkroom. For fun. Only, he's never held a DSLR, never looked at a photo book, and I checked the receipt included potassium cyanide. Eleanor's role became clearer over time. I caught her reading my emails. When I confronted her, she laughed. "You left your laptop open. I was just trying to check mine." But the thing is, she had her own computer, a brand new MacBook Pro Alexander gave her 2 Christmases ago. She never needed mine. The next week, I found her reorganizing the medicine cabinet. "Just tidying," she said. Only, she moved my prescriptions into a separate basket, labeled it dangerous, with a red sticker. She'd been making me feel crazy, and now she was trying to make it look like I was unstable. Gaslighting 101. Paul Alexander's younger brother had always been the family oddball. Tech guy, camera nerd, moved to Austin, started a YouTube channel about digital legacies helping families record their stories. When he called and offered to film a family memory day for Eleanor, Alexander jumped on it. "Mom would love that," he said. "Maybe it'll lift her spirits." The night before Paul came, Alexander cleaned the dining room obsessively, polished silverware, laid out my favorite mugs. "For aesthetics," he said. He also insisted on brewing the coffee himself the next morning. Fresh ground beans. His special touch. It all looked so normal. That's the thing about poison. It never looks like what it is. Back in the present, Paul crouched beside Eleanor, holding her wrist. She's breathing, but barely. I handed him my phone. Call 911. I think it was cyanide. Alexander backed against the wall like a cornered animal. You can't prove anything. I stepped closer. You literally just confessed. On a hot mic. Paul raised an eyebrow. I've got clear audio. Time-stamped. No cuts. Alexander lunged for the mic pack in Paul's hand, but Paul dodged. Swift and controlled. Don't try me, he said. I was trying to help her, Alexander shouted. She was losing it, acting paranoid. You mean she noticed the poisoning, Paul said. Alexander froze. The sirens wailed in the distance, faint but growing louder. And that's when Eleanor opened her mouth. She didn't speak. She gurgled, and her eyes were locked right on me. Eleanor's eyes, locked on mine, bloodshot, unblinking, accusatory. Her mouth twitched as if trying to speak, but all that came out was a low, gurgling rasp, a mix of saliva and desperation. It was one of the few moments in my life where time truly slowed. I wanted to look away, but I didn't. She'd spent months making me feel like I was losing my mind, walking into rooms just to watch me work, whispering to Alexander behind closed doors, picking at my sanity with that same steady gaze. And now, here she was, sprawled on my hardwood floor, jaw slack, pupils dilated, and still judging me. The paramedics burst through the front door before anyone could say another word. Paul backed up quickly, letting them work. He slipped the audio recorder into his hoodie pocket without a word, smooth, discreet, like he'd done this kind of thing before. I wasn't sure what was more unsettling, that my brother-in-law might be used to catching confessions on tape, or that none of this seemed to rattle him. Alexander, he folded in on himself. As the medics stabilized Eleanor, shouting vitals and uncoiling tubes, he stood off to the side like a ghost, pale, still, hands limp at his sides. I watched as they fitted a breathing mask over her face, strapped her to the gurney, and rushed her out through the front door. Not a single glance back at me. Not even as they wheeled her across the porch where I once stood smiling, offering her herbal tea after her fall last winter. The door slammed shut behind them. Silence fell again. Paul leaned against the kitchen counter, arms crossed. You good? I nodded slowly. I think so. He raised a brow, because that didn't look like a woman who's good. That looked like someone who just saw her demon exorcised. I almost laughed. Almost. But I didn't. Instead, I turned to Alexander, who was now slumped in the corner of the dining room, staring at the overturned chair where Eleanor had collapsed. He didn't say anything. I didn't either, not yet. I walked over to the cabinet beside the sink, the one where Eleanor insisted we keep our morning meds for convenience. I opened the drawer, pulled out the basket labeled dangerous, Anna's only, and dumped the entire thing onto the counter. 8 orange prescription bottles tumbled out. I picked one up, Xanax. Another Ambien, neither of which had ever been prescribed to me. My name wasn't on any of the labels. You were trying to build a case, I said, turning to face Alexander. Gaslight me. Get me institutionalized. Make it look like I was spiraling. He didn't move. Cyanide's too risky, right? If I died, there'd be a toxicology report. But if I just seemed unwell, unstable, you could control the narrative. Still nothing. So I opened the top drawer of his desk. He watched me now, eyes wide, pupils flickering with dread. I pulled out the brown leather notebook he kept there, the one I pretended not to notice. I flipped through it, pages dense with handwriting, budget notes, meeting dates. And there, tucked between his tax files and grocery lists, a rough outline. Plan A, slow increase, sublethal dose, disorienting effect, monitor speech patterns, encourage breaks from work if denied. Escalate, have Eleanor document concerning behavior. I held the page up. Still think you're getting out of this with an insanity plea? I asked. That's when he finally snapped. You were never supposed to make it this far, he shouted, lunging from his seat. But Paul was faster. He shoved himself between us, hands up, back, off. Alexander's jaw flexed. You think she's some kind of hero? Paul, she's not. She's a manipulative, power-hungry. She's a survivor. Paul cut in. And you're a walking mugshot. I exhaled, chest tight. Months of playing dumb, of biting my tongue, of waking up each morning unsure if what I was feeling was real or manufactured, of second-guessing every step, every sip, every word out of my own mouth. It all landed in that moment like bricks falling from the sky. You never loved me, I said. Not a question. You loved the idea of me, until I outgrew you. Alexander scoffed. Please. You think you're so special because you're a woman with a title. You were nothing without me. I helped build your reputation. Your firm only promoted you because you ticked the right boxes. And there it was, the truth. The festering, twisted core of it. This wasn't about me. It was about control. He couldn't handle watching me succeed, watching me surpass him. So instead of stepping up, he'd decided to take me down. Slowly, quietly. And he would have succeeded, if not for one thing. Eleanor? I looked back at the empty floor. Say what you will about her, she was cruel, manipulative, probably complicit. But in the end, she drank the cup. The very cup her son poured for me. Maybe it was fate. Maybe it was justice. Or maybe, just maybe, it was her final lesson to both of us. Because the truth was, Eleanor wasn't just Alexander's puppet. She was his mentor. The one who taught him that women were dangerous when empowered. That keeping a man happy meant knowing your place. That if I didn't fit her mold, I deserved to be broken. I was the bad daughter-in-law from day one, too loud, too ambitious, too unwilling to yield. But I wasn't broken. Not anymore. I turned to Paul. We need to get that recording somewhere safe. He nodded, already backed up to cloud. I also emailed it to myself and to my lawyer buddy in Austin. Smart. And, he added, to your firm's ethics hotline. I blinked. Why? In case Alexander tries to spin this as workplace retaliation, I know how this game works. The doorbell rang. Sheriff's deputies. Lights flashing outside the window. Red and blue dancing across our clean white walls. Paul gave me a long look. You ready? I looked down at my wedding ring. And for the first time in months, I felt ready. I slid the ring off. Set it on the counter. Let it sit beside the poison that was meant to end me. Yeah, I whispered. Let's finish this. I opened the door, and standing on the porch behind the deputies was Eleanor's lawyer, with a sealed envelope and my name on it. The sheriff's deputy stepped aside as the woman approached mid-50s, neat gray blazer, eyes sharp behind rectangular frames. She held the envelope like it was made of glass. And the moment I saw my name written in Eleanor's handwriting, that loopy cursive she used on birthday cards, and backhanded grocery lists, I felt something cold snake through my spine. Anna Peterson, she asked. I nodded. I'm Susan Klein. I represent your mother-in-law, Eleanor Hayes. I have instructions to deliver this to you, upon the event of her incapacitation. Paul muttered under his breath. She really had a contingency lawyer. I ignored him. My fingers closed around the envelope. The paper was heavy ivory stock, sealed with an actual wax stamp, a crimson H. It felt ceremonial, almost theatrical, classic Eleanor. Inside one page, handwritten. I read silently, lips pressed thin. Anna, if you're reading this, then something has gone terribly wrong. Or terribly right. Either way, I won't be there to explain it myself. So here it is, my final truth. I knew Alexander was planning something. He was never good at hiding things from me. He takes after his father that way, all ambition. No subtlety. What I didn't expect was that he'd try it on you. I know I wasn't kind. I know you'll probably never forgive me. But I wasn't trying to hurt you. Anna, I was trying to see if you were strong enough to survive in this family, to earn your place. You did. I've left something for you. Ask Susan. It's time you had the tools to protect yourself. Eleanor. My stomach twisted. This wasn't an apology. It was a passing of the torch. Susan cleared her throat. She asked me to show you something else. Privately. I nodded numbly and followed her outside. Paul started to come too, but I waved him off. Give me 5. Susan led me to her car, a black Audi parked under the oak tree out front. She unlocked the trunk and lifted a sleek black briefcase from inside. This, she said, was added to Eleanor's living trust 5 months ago, under the clause, if Anna is still in the family. My chest tightened. Still in the family. She assumed there was a chance you might not be nice. The briefcase clicked open. Inside was a single red leather notebook, thick and worn like it had been handled daily. Susan handed it to me without a word. I opened to the first page. Hayes family accounts, assets, leverage. Page after page of meticulous documentation, not just finances secrets, payments, affairs, deals, blackmail notes. Eleanor had kept receipts on everyone, including her own sons. Alexander had borrowed $70,000 from a firm client 3 years ago. Unreported, unrepaid. There was a scanned copy of a love letter from him to someone named Cam, written 6 months into our marriage. No dates. Just, I wish you were the one I came home to. Another entry was worse, a transcript of a conversation between Alexander and one of his partners discussing how to manipulate a court outcome using false expert testimony. I slammed the book shut. My hands were trembling again, but not with fear this time, with clarity. Eleanor hadn't just been watching me. She'd been watching everyone. And now she was handing me the keys to the kingdom. Susan said, she also added a clause to your prenup. If you ever chose to divorce Alexander, this information legally belongs to you as a protective measure. That twist of power, that shift was dizzying. She did all this. Why, I asked, half to myself. Susan shrugged. Eleanor never believed in letting men stay in control for too long, even if she didn't say it out loud. I couldn't tell if that made her a monster or a mentor. Maybe both. Back inside, the sheriff's deputies were questioning Alexander. He'd already started deflecting. It was a mix-up. She must have grabbed the wrong cup. I didn't know she had any health issues. I stepped forward. I have evidence, I said firmly. Not just of this incident, but of a pattern of behavior, financial fraud, malpractice, a history of psychological abuse. I'm willing to give a full statement. Alexander looked at me like I'd pulled the roof down. You're not serious, he hissed. You'd ruin my career. I stared right back. You tried to ruin my life. He looked to Paul. You're really letting this happen? Paul gave him a deadpan shrug. I'm just here for the footage. The lead deputy looked between us. Ma'am, are you formally pressing charges? I took a breath. Then I reached into my pocket, pulled out Eleanor's notebook, and held it out. This should answer that question. 2 hours later, Alexander was in cuffs, and I was sitting in my bedroom with the red notebook open on the bed beside me. My phone buzzed with texts, colleagues from the firm, friends asking about the police cars, Paul sending clips of the audio file from the morning. But I wasn't reading any of it. I was staring at a single photograph tucked between pages 82 and 83. It was a picture of me, taken through the kitchen window. I was drinking coffee, laughing, alone. And someone Eleanor, I assumed, had scribbled underneath, she's still standing. Good. The rage, the grief, the confusion, it was all there, tangled in my chest like barbed wire. but also something new. Resolve. That night, I sat down at the dining table alone this time and poured myself a cup of fresh, untainted coffee, just black, no almond. And as I lifted it to my lips, I whispered aloud, to no one in particular, "Drink up, honey." But just as I set the mug down, my phone buzzed with a text. Unknown number. You don't know the full story. Meet me tomorrow, noon, Café Duval. Attached was a photo of Eleanor. Alive. Awake. Sitting up in a hospital bed, I stared at the photo for a long time. Eleanor, awake, in a hospital bed, eyes open, looking straight into the camera like she knew it would be sent to me. There was no timestamp, no caption beyond the text. You don't know the full story. Meet me tomorrow, noon, Café Duval. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was scared, not anymore, but because my brain wouldn't shut off. I'd watched Eleanor convulse on my floor, heard the death rattle, saw her eyes roll back. The medics said it was a cyanide reaction. She was barely breathing when they carried her out. Barely. So how was she sitting up? The next morning, I drove to Café Duval with a familiar ache in my gut, the kind you get before a verdict, before a cross-examination, before your entire world is about to shift, and you know it. Café Duval was one of those pseudo-European coffee shops tucked in a quiet Nashville corner, overpriced espresso, high ceilings, wood beams painted a moody gray. I chose a booth in the back and waited. Exactly at noon, Eleanor entered, walking. No wheelchair, no cane, just that signature silk scarf tied at her throat and the steely presence of someone who'd planned 1,000 moves ahead. She sat across from me without a word. A waitress came by. Eleanor ordered a black coffee. No sugar. I didn't order anything. I couldn't trust anything on the menu. When the waitress left, Eleanor finally spoke. I taught you better than that. Always have a cup in front of you, otherwise people assume you're plotting something. I leaned forward. You were dead, or close enough. She smirked. Wasn't the first time. You were poisoned. I took an antidote before breakfast. I blinked. Excuse me. I suspected Alexander was escalating, so I pre-dosed, activated charcoal capsules and sodium thiosulfate, diluted the cyanide's effect enough to knock me out, but not kill me. I couldn't breathe for a second. You let yourself collapse. I needed to know just how far he'd go, whether he was trying to scare you or eliminate you. And now, she sipped her coffee. Now I know. There was a silence between us so thick I could hear my heartbeat. You staged your own collapse. She nodded, and I trusted you to respond the right way. You tested me. Everything's a test, Anna, especially in this family. I sat back, stunned. You realize you could have died. I'd rather die on my own terms than at the hands of a son who couldn't even lie well. I didn't know whether to slap her or thank her. So why call me here, I asked. Eleanor reached into her purse, pulled out a flash drive. Because the notebook was just the beginning. She said, "This is the real war chest." I hesitated. What's on it? Video files, audio, documents, everything Alexander buried, every client he tampered with, every dollar laundered. It's enough to make sure he never practices law again, or walks free. Why give it to me? She leaned forward, eyes piercing, because now you understand the price of survival, and because you're the only one ruthless enough to use it without flinching. I stared at the flash drive, small, innocent looking, the kind of thing you could lose in a coat pocket. And yet, it held the rest of my freedom. What's the catch, I asked. She smiled, slow and deliberate. You use it. You finish what I started. But on one condition, you don't just destroy Alexander. You rebuild from the ashes. You take what was meant to break you and turn it into your launch pad. My mouth was dry. And if I refuse? Her smile didn't falter. You won't. That night, I plugged the flash drive into my laptop. Folder after folder popped up, labeled by year, by firm, by initials. There were video calls recorded secretly, voice memos, legal documents marked sealed that had no business outside a courtroom. I clicked on one labeled Client 14A, Liability Confession. Alexander's voice filled my speakers. No, we didn't run that background check. But if it goes public, we'll be toast. So just redact it. Nobody needs to know. Another file labeled Eleanor Insurance. If anything happens to me, I want Anna to have it all. Alexander doesn't get a cent unless he earns it. And trust me, he won't. My breath hitched. This wasn't revenge. This was ammunition. And Eleanor had loaded the gun. Now it was in my hands. I spent the next week preparing. First, I met with Susan again. We drafted legal complaints, lined up ethics violations, built a case strong enough to bring down half the board at Alexander's firm if needed. We also pulled up divorce documents airtight, prenup-backed, and aggressive. Then I called Paul. We edited the audio and video into a concise package, something the public would understand, something the media wouldn't ignore. We didn't send it out yet, just held it, for now. And then I confronted Alexander. He was out on bail, staying at a downtown hotel, pretending to work remotely. When I showed up, he opened the door looking pale, unshaven, like he hadn't slept in days. Anna, he breathed, like my name still had power. I walked past him into the room, tossed the flash drive onto the table. That, I said, is everything. He stared at it. I release it to the state, to the bar, to the press, unless you do exactly what I say. He scoffed. You're bluffing. I pulled out my phone, showed him the draft of an email ready to send. Recipients a list of state ethics boards, media outlets, court clerks. Alexander's hands began to shake. What do you want? He asked. I turned slowly. I want my freedom. I want the divorce signed by tomorrow. I want a public resignation from your firm and an admission of misconduct. And I want you gone. Gone. You're leaving Nashville. You're never coming near me again. He swallowed, hard. You do all that, I said, and this stays buried. You try anything, even a whisper of retaliation, and you'll be infamous by morning. He looked like a child who'd just seen the truth about the monster under his bed. You're serious, he said. Deadly. He signed everything the next day. Resigned the day after. And by the end of the week, I was no longer Anna Peterson. I'd gone back to my maiden name. Anna Lewis. Free. Clear. But just as I sat on the porch, sipping coffee from my mug, watching the sunrise over the city, Paul called. Hey, he said, you're not going to like this. My stomach sank. What is it? He exhaled. One of the files we never opened, the folder marked E.H. Backup. Yeah. There's a video from 2 years ago. Eleanor. She's not talking about Alexander. She's talking about you. I blinked. What? She says you're a threat, that if you get too ambitious, she has a plan to neutralize you. A chill swept through my bones. Send it, I whispered. And then I heard it. Eleanor's voice. If she gets too powerful, I'll do what I must. 1 queen per board. Darling, always. My thumb hovered over the play button. Paul had just sent the file. The name of the video was Cold and Clinical E.H. Insurance Plan 2.mov. I sat alone in my living room, the late evening sun slicing golden lines across the hardwood floor. The air was still, as if the whole house was holding its breath. I tapped play. Eleanor appeared on screen, seated in that same wingback chair in her sunroom, the one with the powder blue upholstery she'd imported from Italy, the date stamp in the corner nearly 2 years ago. Her voice was calm, intentional. If you're watching this, I assume Anna's made her move. Good. That means she's strong, smart, resourceful. She paused to sip her tea. Earl Grey. I'd bet. She drank nothing else after 2 p.m. But let's be clear. She is a threat. Not just to Alexander, that was inevitable, but to everything I've built. The family name, the firm, the legacy. She leaned forward slightly, as if speaking to a confidant. If she tries to leverage that notebook against us, activate Plan B. I've already laid the groundwork. All it needs is one trigger. There was no expression in her voice, no rage, just calculation. Her ambition is admirable, but I've learned the hard way only one queen survives the endgame. The video cut out. I sat frozen. It wasn't just that Eleanor had planned for Alexander's betrayal. She'd planned for mine. She'd tested me, used me, armed me, and simultaneously plotted to eliminate me if I ever got too powerful. My entire spine went ice cold. Paul called just as the room seemed to fold inward. "I take it you watched it," he asked, without preamble. "She planned to destroy me too." "Yeah," he said. "I've been scrubbing her backup files. She had drafts of character smear campaigns, anonymous legal complaints, even a faked psych evaluation template, all with your name on them." Jesus. She played both sides of the chessboard. I stood slowly. My body felt distant, like I was made of paper and fog. "She hasn't made a move yet. That means she's waiting." Paul cleared his throat. "Anna, if she pulls that trigger before you do anything, I'm not giving her the chance." I hung up. That night, I drove out to the private rehab facility Eleanor was supposedly recovering in a luxury estate in Franklin reserved for the rich and strategically ill. I didn't call ahead, didn't announce myself. I showed up wearing a black blazer, flats, and a resolve sharp enough to cut glass. I told the front desk I was her attorney, flashed a badge I borrowed from Susan's office, technically a lie, but not morally, not anymore. They let me through. Room 214. I knocked twice. Eleanor's voice drifted out. "Come in, darling. I was expecting you." She was seated again, propped up against fine linens and a bouquet of fresh lavender. A paperback Hemingway rested on her lap. No IVs, no oxygen tubes, just a silk scarf, a faint blush, and a full-face look of amused detachment. "You look well," I said. I always bounce back. Family trait. I stepped closer. "You planned to use me." She didn't deny it. "I gave you power," she said, "and I built in insurance. That's how this world works." I crossed my arms. "You're not in charge anymore." She chuckled. "You think having the notebook and the flash drive makes you queen? That's just leverage, darling. I have narrative. I have influence." My voice didn't shake when I replied. "So do I." I pulled out my phone, set it on the table between us, hit play. A compilation I'd stitched together with Paul's help. Eleanor's voice from the hidden file, cut next to scenes of her manipulation clips from our Ring camera, her cold instructions to Alexander, testimony from Paul and archived voicemails she never knew I saved. Each one lined up like a bullet in a row. Her face changed just slightly, the jaw clenched, the eyes flicked downward. "You release that," she warned, "and you start a war." "It's already started. I just stopped pretending it hadn't." She studied me for a long time. "You're playing a dangerous game." "No," I said, leaning in, "you taught me how to play it." By the next morning, I'd done what Eleanor never thought I'd do. I went public. I didn't leak it to tabloids. I released a single clean-cut video on my own social media titled, "When Family Becomes the Enemy, A Lawyer's Story." Just under 10 minutes. It opened with Eleanor's secret recording, then cut to clips of Alexander's confessions, abuse, the red notebook contents, and a timeline of manipulation spanning nearly 5 years. I didn't narrate it. I let the facts speak. The reaction. Immediate. Within hours, legal Twitter exploded. The Bar Association issued an emergency ethics inquiry. A local journalist launched a podcast series. Clients from the Hayes firm withdrew contracts. Law students DM'd me saying they cried, that it gave them courage to leave toxic partnerships. But the part that mattered most. The voicemail I received that evening? From an unknown number. Eleanor's voice. You played your hand? Well, let's see how you handle what comes next. Click. No apology. No surrender. Just another move. Another threat. Paul called 5 minutes later. You good? I don't know. You did it. Anna, you beat them. No, I said, walking out onto my porch. The wind was cold, sharp. I matched them. And then, my phone buzzed again. An email this time. Subject line Reestate Review, Hayes Family Holdings. Attached, a scanned copy of Eleanor's real will. Updated 3 weeks ago. And suddenly, everything made sense. Because there, in bold black ink, was a new line. In the event of my death or permanent incapacitation, I leave controlling shares of the Hayes Legal Group to Anna Lewis. My heart dropped. And in the corner, under witness signature, was a name I hadn't seen in a while. Cam Rivera. The same name from the love letter in the red notebook. Alexander's secret affair. The one Eleanor had blackmailed him with. Cam was still in play. And apparently Eleanor had just passed him the torch. The scanned will glowed on my laptop screen. I zoomed in on the signature block again. Witness Cam Rivera. My pulse skipped. Not from fear this time, but recognition. That creeping sense of unfinished business. Cam had always been a ghost in the margins of my marriage. An affair. A shame. A secret Alexander tried to erase with cold silence and overcompensating gifts. But Eleanor, she'd kept him close. And now, she'd chosen him as her final chess piece. I spent the next 2 days in research mode. No sleep, just caffeine, audio files, and legal cross-referencing. Here's what I found. Cam wasn't just Alexander's old flame. He was also a former paralegal at Hayes Legal Group, terminated under ethical conflict circumstances. But if you dug deeper, I did it. Turned out Cam had filed an internal misconduct report about Alexander. Harassment, misuse of client funds. The report vanished from public record, but I found the memo Eleanor had archived and the settlement check she quietly authorized under personal liability. $50,000. Signed with a flourish E. Hayes. Cam had been silenced. Paid off, but not erased. And now he'd reemerged. Right at the moment Eleanor declared me heir to the firm. Not Alexander. Not even Paul. Me. And Cam had witnessed it. The final twist. He wasn't just a witness to the will. He was named alternate executor. If I declined to accept the shares, Cam would take over. It was genius. If I backed down, Eleanor still won. If I accepted, I'd inherit the full weight of her legacy enemies, lawsuits, vendettas, all of it. It was a poisoned crown, and I had to decide wear it or burn the throne. I met Cam at a bookstore cafe in East Nashville. He looked older than the last photo I'd seen, maybe 40 now, with sharp cheekbones and a soft wariness around the eyes. He spotted me instantly, raised his cup slightly, then gestured for me to sit. I assume you read the fine print, he said. More than once. He nodded. There was a long pause, the weight of 2 ghosts between us. I didn't expect to be dragged back into all this, he said finally. Not after what she did. She gave you money. She gave me a gag order. Same thing, really. I leaned forward. Why sign the will? She called in a favor, said it was to protect the firm. I didn't know she was naming you. You're not here to challenge me." He shrugged. I thought about it. But honestly, I think she wanted us to fight each other. That's how she controlled people. A beat. "I'm not interested in continuing her games," he added. I believed him. "So what do you want?" I asked. He sipped his coffee. "I want to help you break the chain." Later that day, I stood inside the now half-empty office of Hayes Legal Group. The board had dissolved. The firm's name was in probate limbo. Most of the partners had resigned or been implicated in the fallout. The brand was radioactive. Perfect. I made the announcement that night. A live stream, no edits, no production. Just me, a desk, and the truth. 3 years ago, I began. I married into a family that believed in legacy over love. That power was inherited, not earned. That silence was safer than truth. I paused. They were wrong. I laid out the new plan. The firm would be reborn as Lewis and Rivera, an independent legal practice focused on ethics, transparency, and restorative justice. No more closed doors. No more sealed files. A place where women, queer professionals, and whistleblowers weren't threats. They were the future. People thought I was crazy. Starting over from scorched earth. With the man my ex cheated on me with. But in America, that's exactly how reinvention works. You lose everything, and you build better. Weeks passed. The firm opened in a modest office downtown. Word spread fast. Clients who'd been bullied by Hayes Legal started showing up. Whistleblowers. Women who'd been told to smile more. Associates tired of being silenced. The symbol changed too. The mug? The one Alexander had poisoned. I kept it. We framed it, cracks still visible, with a tiny plaque that read, "She drank and lived." Every client saw it as they entered. Every associate knew what it meant. We weren't just another firm. We were a warning. One morning, about 6 months in, I received a letter. No return address, just my name, handwritten. Inside was a note. "I underestimated you. You didn't just survive the storm. You became it. Congratulations, Anna." There was no apology. But I didn't need one. That was the closest Eleanor would ever come to admitting defeat. And in its own twisted way, maybe it was her blessing. So here I am. A name reborn. A legacy rewritten. A woman who walked through fire, drank poison, and came out holding the match. Not for revenge anymore, but for control. Of my story, my choices, my future. And if you're watching this, and you've ever felt like the world handed you ashes when you deserved gold, just know this. You can rebuild. You don't need permission. You just need to start. Like, share, subscribe. And remember, the coffee always tastes better when you pour it yourself. Story 2. I was 26 when the storm hit. Not the kind that rolls in with thunder or rips shingles off rooftops. No. This one came with a phone call, a rain-slick highway, and a man I thought would love me forever. My name is Laura Carter. I used to think I had it all figured out, junior associate at a rising law firm in downtown Chicago. Freshly promoted, grinding my way up the partner track. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. I was the kind of woman who never left work before 8 p.m., who lived on cold coffee and color-coded binders. I'd worked tooth and nail to get there. People didn't hand me things. I earned them, every inch. And I had Brandon, or at least I thought I did. Brandon Miller, same age as me, but smoother. He worked in corporate finance, big firm, flashy clients, nice suits, even nicer watch. He had that kind of ambition you could smell when he walked into a room. And I was proud of him. I thought we were building something together. Two smart people trying to outrun the ghosts of their pasts. But ghosts catch up, and some of them drive trucks. It was late October, and the sky looked like someone had washed it with ash. I remember staring out of the 43rd floor window of my office, watching the wind bend the streetlights like dancers swaying to a broken song. I should have left earlier. I'd promised Brandon dinner some overpriced French place in River North that I never liked, but he insisted made me look sophisticated. Instead, I was still at the office rewriting a contract Mr. Raymond dumped on me at 5:17 p.m. Sharp. The Pedro account. Always the damn Pedro account. So I texted running late? 20 minutes? Max? He called. The Bluetooth crackled in my Honda as I merged onto the I-90 windshield wipers, barely keeping up. Laura, where are you? I've been waiting an hour. I'm sorry, babe. Mr. Raymond made me redo the whole contract. This is getting ridiculous, he snapped. You care more about that crusty old man than you do about us. I'm trying to get home safe in this weather. Maybe if you cared half as much about this relationship as you do about impressing some dude who doesn't even know your name. I never heard the end of that sentence. The truck came out of nowhere. 1 minute I was arguing. The next, I was staring at headlights sliding sideways across the wet asphalt. Then metal. Then black. Beep. 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 The first thing I remember was the sound of monitors. Then the smell bleach. Latex. The faint trace of lemon-scented disinfectant trying to cover something more sterile. More permanent. She's waking up, a voice said female. Warm, calm, but cautious. Laura, can you hear me? I tried to speak, but my throat felt like someone had sandblasted it. A straw touched my lips. Cold water. Relief. I croaked one word. Where? You're at Metro General? She said gently. I'm Dr. Augustus, your neurologist. You've been in a coma for 2 weeks. 2 weeks? That number was too big. My brain didn't know where to put it. I tried to sit up. My legs didn't move. Brandon, I whispered. Dr. Augustus exchanged a glance with a nurse. He's been here almost every day. He's in the cafeteria now. Do you want us to call him? Something in her tone made me hesitate. Wait, I said. What happened to me? Her face changed, no longer professional, but solemn. You were in a severe automobile accident. The injuries were extensive. You fractured your spine at the L1 vertebra. Laura, I'm afraid you've lost all motor function below the waist. I didn't cry. Not then. Not when she said I'd never walk again. Not even when I realized my future had just been rewritten without my consent. I stared at the ceiling, the kind with those pockmarked tiles that look like someone punched holes into silence. The doctor kept talking something about therapy, adaptive equipment, remarkable new technologies, but I didn't hear any of it. All I could think was, what will Brandon say? He came into the room 20 minutes later. The way he looked at me, guilt in the corners of his eyes. His shoulders hunched forward like he wanted to apologize, but didn't know where to begin. Laura, he breathed, as if my name was some secret he hadn't spoken in years. Thank God. I was so scared. He kissed my hand. He meant well. Maybe. We'll get through this, he said. Whatever it takes. And for a while, I believed him. The rehab center smelled like bleach and broken promises. Every day was a new humiliation. Learning to transfer from the bed to the wheelchair. Relearning how to pee. How to dress myself. How to exist in a world built for legs. Angela, my physical therapist, was relentlessly positive. You're ahead of schedule, she'd say, helping me onto the therapy table. Most people don't have a choice. I'd mutter, arms shaking, sweat dripping down my back. But she was right. I was making progress. The same obsessive drive that got me through law school now pushed me to lift, push, rotate, sweat, fail, repeat. My arms grew stronger. My face hardened. Brandon visited at first. Flowers. Magazines. Promises. I've been looking at apartments, he said once, perching on the edge of my hospital bed. Ground floor. Accessible. He tried. I'll give him that. But he never looked me in the eye when he said we. By month 2, the visits slowed. Busy with work. Traffic was bad. Just tired. By month 3, he forgot my favorite coffee order. I remember watching him scroll through his phone one day while I was telling him about my progress. "You seem distracted," I said. He blinked, looked up. "Sorry. Pedro account stuff." Funny. That was the contract I rewrote the night I lost my legs. I thought Raymond reassigned that after my accident. "He did? To me?" His tone carried a little pride. My account. My loss. His win. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling again. Not thinking about my legs. Thinking about Brandon's face when he said the words, "to me." It was a Monday when the text came. Riley Matthews, my college roommate. The only person who ever made hospital visits without bringing guilt as a side dish. "Saw Brandon at Cafe Luna yesterday. He wasn't alone." Tall blonde. Looked like money. Holding hands. "I'm sorry." I didn't reply. I didn't cry. I just sat there, phone in hand, listening to the ticking clock on the wall like it might rewind time. The next day, Brandon showed up as usual. Same empty smile, same weak updates about the weather. I asked, "Where'd you have lunch yesterday?" He froze. "Office. Just grabbed something." "Riley thought she saw you at Cafe Luna." The color drained from his face. He looked down at his hands. "Laura, Who is she?" He hesitated. "Her name's Shelley. She's a friend. From work. Her dad owns the accounting firm we use." "A friend?" "She's been helping me. It's been hard, watching you go through this, not knowing how to help." I almost laughed. "So you found someone to help you, cope with watching me suffer?" He looked away. "I didn't mean for this to happen." "But it did." He nodded. And in that moment, I saw him clearly. Not the man who held my hand in the ICU. Not the man who kissed my cheek while I cried through therapy. A boy, weak, cowardly, who couldn't carry the weight of real love once it no longer walked beside him. "Get out," I said quietly. "Laura, get out." "I still love you." "No, you don't." I wanted to say, "You loved the version of me that didn't need you." He left. I didn't watch him go. But I remember the sound the door made when it closed. Like the last note of a song that never deserved to be written. What Brandon didn't know was that while he was busy falling in love with Shelley, I was building an empire. And soon, he'd be begging for an invitation into my world. I didn't scream after Brandon left. I didn't throw anything. I just sat there, motionless, hands curled around the metal rims of my wheelchair, staring at the hospital wall like it owed me an explanation. What now? The silence answered first. Then came something slower, deeper, something like anger, but colder. Not the kind that burns, the kind that crystallizes. Angela noticed it before I did. "You've changed," she said one afternoon, watching me transfer from chair to mat without help. "Good or bad?" I asked. She shrugged. "Good for you. Maybe bad for someone else." She wasn't wrong. While most patients were fighting to regain what they lost, I was trying to become someone else entirely. The woman Brandon left in that room, the one who begged, who hoped she was gone. In her place, I didn't know yet, but I knew one thing: she wouldn't be underestimated again. 3 months into rehab, I started researching. Not just mobility aids or wheelchair hacks. I went deeper. Business licenses, LLC formation, financial literacy, branding strategies. I watched YouTube lectures at midnight. I studied how people rebuilt after disaster. Not just physically, but economically. I subscribed to newsletters about funding, bootstrapping, equity. I wasn't going back to the firm. That version of me, the people pleaser clawing for validation from people like Mr. Raymond, was done. Instead, I registered my own name. Carter and Slate. It sounded clean, strategic. legacy adjacent. The irony Slate didn't even exist. I made her up. I liked the sound of having a partner. Made investors more comfortable. Within 6 months, I had my first client, a family-run tech startup that was being chewed alive by a predatory acquisition. I handled their contracts from a rehab suite with a portable desk tray and a borrowed laptop. We won. They sent flowers and a check that nearly made me cry. That night, I bought myself a new wheelchair, Italian leather, chrome detail. The kind of chair that didn't say broken, it said bespoke. It arrived the same day. Brandon posted a photo of him and Shelley at the Symphony Gala. Her dress sparkled like something pulled from a bridal catalog. His hand rested on the small of her back, possessive and practiced. The caption read, "Couldn't imagine doing life without her." I smiled. Let them have the gala. I had plans of my own. By the 1-year mark, Carter and Slate had tripled in size. Not in staff, I still ran it lean, but in clients, reach, power. People started inviting me to investor brunches, pitch panels, startup showcases. I rolled into glass conference rooms full of men who blinked a little too long when they saw the chair, then scrambled to adjust when I out-negotiated them by lunch. My chair had become my symbol, my leverage, a reminder that I'd already been through worse than whatever boardroom stunt they had in mind. But I wasn't done. Not yet. Riley re-entered my life like a gust of air. She'd never disappeared, but our rhythms had shifted. That day she sent the text about Brandon cheating. I hadn't answered right away, but she didn't hold it against me. She showed up with coffee, with sarcasm, with the kind of honesty only someone who knew your ugliest moments could deliver. I saw Shelley last week, she said one afternoon, plopping onto my apartment couch. Oh! She was bragging at a networking brunch about planning her engagement party at the Grayson. My eyebrows lifted. The Grayson was legendary. Old money glam with floor-to-ceiling windows and imported stone. Penthouse suites ran $10,000 a night. I knew. I'd been eyeing it. She said Brandon wants to propose on the rooftop. Candlelight. String quartet. Something out of a Pinterest fever dream. Riley paused, studying me. You okay? I'm better than okay, I said, unlocking my tablet. That night, I submitted a quiet offer. 3 weeks later, Carter and Slate Holdings acquired a majority stake in the Grayson Hotel Group. There's something delicious about control when you've had it ripped from you. The contract was airtight. Public-facing ownership remained unchanged, but I now signed off on every major event, including rooftop engagements. I didn't stop the party. That would have been petty, predictable. Instead, I reserved the penthouse suite above theirs. And I sent a message. Midnight, penthouse 17, come alone. We need to talk, L. Simple, sharp, unmistakable. He responded 2 hours later. Who is this? I didn't answer. Because I knew Brandon. Knew the itch behind his confident smile, the need to be in control. To get ahead of the game. He'd come. They always do. Midnight was 7 minutes away. I waited in the shadows of the penthouse suite. Lights dimmed to amber. Glass of wine untouched on the marble counter. Below, I could hear distant echoes of laughter, his laugh. Specifically, that high, boyish tone he used when trying to impress people with last names on foundations. I'd traced the armrest of my chair. The Italian leather still smelled new, luxurious. I remembered the first chair cheap, plastic, white hospital issue. The one he looked at with pity the day he told me I was too much. Dead weight. Well, tonight, I was anything but. The elevator dinged. His footsteps echoed like thunder on a clean stage. I didn't turn around yet. I wanted him to speak first. Laura. His voice was lower than I remembered, nervous. I turned, slowly. He stopped mid-step. His face morphed into 1,000 unreadable things: shock, recognition, shame, fear. I smiled, calm and razor sharp. Brandon. And then just like that, the air shifted. He wasn't in control anymore. I was. And he knew it. Exactly the way I'd planned. But this was just the overture. The real performance hadn't even started. He came looking for answers. What he'll get is the bill for everything he thought he got away with. Brandon stood there like a man who'd stumbled into a room expecting a mirror and found a judge instead. Laura, I didn't know. That I was alive, I cut him off. He swallowed hard, eyes darting from the chandelier above us to the wineglass by my side. Avoiding me, I wheeled forward slowly, deliberate. I didn't rush. Let him hear the smooth hum of the chair's wheels across marble. Let it echo. You didn't think I'd make it past the rehab clinic, I said. Past the pity, the stares, the job rejections, past you. His face tensed, but he didn't speak. He couldn't. And that silence, that was power. I let it hang for a beat, then gestured to the velvet armchair across from me. Sit. You're here. Let's talk. He sat like the cushion might burn him. I didn't give him the satisfaction of jumping right in. Instead, I watched him squirm. His fingers twitched. He tapped the armrest twice, a nervous habit I remembered from late-night depositions. Why did you invite me here? He asked finally. I didn't, I replied. I summoned you. That made him flinch. 1 point for me. I didn't come here to fight, he said, voice low. This was a shock. I leaned back, let the silence stretch. How's Shelley? That made him sit up straighter. She's fine. Still planning that fairy tale rooftop wedding? He hesitated. We haven't finalized anything. Good, I said. You may want to hold off on booking the venue. His confusion was priceless. And still, he hadn't asked the real question, why now? So I answered it for him. You don't remember what you said, do you? I asked. He blinked. What? In the hospital room, after they told me I'd never walk again, you said, no one wants to carry dead weight forever. Then you left. His face paled. I didn't mean it like that. You meant it exactly like that, I said, my tone still calm. And that's what burned. He looked down, lips parted like he was still deciding between apology or justification. I didn't let him choose. You want to know why I brought you here? He nodded, slowly. Because tonight, you're going to understand what it feels like to be underestimated, to be dismissed, to watch someone walk away from you, not out of weakness, but because they've already won. He laughed, nervous and unsure. So this is payback. No, this is education. I turned the iPad on the table toward him and tapped the screen. A photo loaded Shelley, in a sharp green blazer, mid-laugh with an older man. The caption, New CFO of Hallstrom Equity, effective immediately. Brandon's jaw clenched. She didn't tell you, I said, watching his eyes move over the image. She's been consulting on the acquisition of the very firm you just applied to. He looked stunned. What? I'm bidding for Hallstrom, I said casually. Shelley's helping facilitate the deal. Technically, that makes her my employee. I paused. But don't worry. We don't let personal relationships get in the way of business. Unless, of course, they lie on their resume. Brandon stood abruptly. This is insane. You're trying to ruin me. I'm not trying, I said. I'm succeeding. He paced the suite, muttering. The air around him felt thinner, tighter. I could almost hear the mental math he was doing, calculating the fallout, the optics, the boardroom implications. You've changed, he muttered, almost to himself. No, I corrected. I stopped shrinking. He looked at me, the boy who once wore tailored suits like armor. Now, the armor cracked. I was scared, he said, finally letting the mask slip. You were hurt. I didn't know how to handle it. Then you should have left with honesty, not cruelty. He nodded slowly. You're right. He sat back down. So what now? What do you want from me? That question. That's the one they always ask. What do you want? They never think the answer is nothing at all. I smiled, soft and terrifying. I don't want anything from you. Brandon, that's the point. I wanted you to sit in front of me, face what you did, and realize that I didn't just survive. I outgrew you. He sat still, quiet now, hollow. I built something, I said, without pity, without shortcuts. Every inch I moved forward, I earned. I reached into my bag and pulled out a small velvet pouch. Inside, one single pearl, a bit scuffed, no chain. I placed it on the table. You gave me a necklace the night before the accident. I said, it snapped when the car hit. This is the only part I kept. He looked at it like it might explode. Why are you showing me this? Because I kept it as a reminder, I said. Not of you, of who I was when I thought I needed you. The elevator dinged again. Angela stepped in, holding a slim briefcase. She glanced at Brandon, then gave me a subtle nod. This is Angela, by the way, I said, my partner, in business, in strategy. She helped me rebuild when I couldn't even lift my own legs. She saw value where you saw burden. Angela sat next to me and placed the briefcase between us. I brought the contracts, she said. Brandon stood, instinctively backing away. No need, I said. You're not signing anything. Not tonight. I turned to Angela. Show him the clause. She opened the briefcase, clicked a tablet on, and tapped. A screen popped up, non-compete enforcement, violation terms. Brandon leaned over, scanning quickly. His shoulders sagged. You really dotted every I, didn't you? He whispered. I nodded. The day I stopped waiting for people to save me was the day I became unstoppable. He left quietly. No final word, no last look. Just the sound of expensive shoes on polished floor. Walking away for the second time, but this time, not by choice. Angela turned to me after the door clicked shut. You okay? I exhaled. No, but I will be. She smiled. You ready for the board vote? I nodded, more than ever. Because this wasn't about revenge. It was about rewriting the script he left behind. And I wasn't done yet. Tomorrow, the boardroom vote will decide the fate of Hallstrom. Brandon thinks he's out of the story. But what he doesn't know is, Shelley isn't playing on his side anymore. The elevator ride to the top floor of Hallstrom Equity's downtown Chicago headquarters was silent. But inside, my heart beat like war drums. Angela stood beside me in a charcoal blazer, tablet in hand. Her reflection in the elevator doors was sharp, composed. I wondered if mine looked the same, or if my nerves were betraying me. It was the first time in years that my hands trembled not from fear, but from anticipation. Today wasn't just a vote. It was a reckoning. The Hallstrom acquisition would catapult Carter and Slate from whispered legend to market power. For Brandon, it was a last-ditch attempt to claw his way back into relevance. But he was no longer my focus. Shelley She had gone quiet since the penthouse meeting. No calls, no updates, no strategy notes. The last text I got from her had read, "Trust me." And I needed to, but I'd trusted before. And I'd bled for it. The boardroom was a wall of dark oak and cold light, 12 chairs, 2 pitchers of lemon water, and an agenda printed in 14-point Times New Roman. As if font size could make betrayal look official. At the head of the table sat William Hallstrom, silver-haired, impossibly tall, with the kind of quiet authority that made grown men shut up mid-sentence. Ms. Carter, Ms. Willis. He nodded as Angela and I entered. Brandon was already there, pale blue tie, fresh shave, trying too hard. His eyes flicked to me and then away, like someone peeking at a wound they helped cause. "Good to see you again, Laura," he said, almost convincingly. "You too, Brandon," I replied smoothly. "You clean up well for a man walking into his own funeral." He tried to laugh it off, but the laugh didn't reach his eyes. The meeting began with pleasantries, then numbers, then slides. Angela led with the precision of a scalpel. I followed with vision expansion, equity, ethics. I spoke to the company's legacy while dismantling its outdated culture with every breath. Then Brandon stood. His speech was practiced, polished, but hollow. "Hallstrom Equity doesn't need disruption," he said, voice warm with faux confidence. "It needs stability. It needs leaders with roots, not revenge." His gaze cut toward me sharp, loaded. I didn't flinch. When he finished, silence hovered in the air like humidity. Then William Hallstrom turned to Shelley. "Ms. Grant," he said, "you've been quiet. Any final thoughts before we vote?" Shelley stood slowly. She wore navy, a power color, one she used sparingly. Her hair was pinned up, her hands resting gently on the table's edge. She looked at me, then at Brandon, and then she spoke. "When I met Brandon," she began, "I thought he was brilliant, driven, but I quickly learned something else. He's not interested in building legacies. He's interested in bandaging his ego." The room shifted, breathless. Brandon's face paled. Shelley continued. "Laura Carter walked through fire to get here. She didn't inherit power. She built it. And I don't think this company needs comfort. I think it needs a storm." She turned to William. "My vote is with Carter and Slate." Brandon stood abruptly. "Are you kidding me? You told me." "No," Shelley said, voice ice. "You assumed?" The vote was over in under 3 minutes. 9 in favor, 3 against. Carter and Slate now held the majority stake. Angela tapped my hand under the table. "We did it," she whispered. I nodded once, then turned to look out the floor-to-ceiling windows. From here, Chicago looked small, gridlocked. Sure, but conquerable. "I'll send the transition documents by noon," William said. "Congratulations." I wheeled back from the table, head high. Brandon didn't follow me this time. He couldn't. Outside, Shelley caught up to me near the elevators. "You knew I'd flip," she said softly. "No," I replied. "I hoped you would." She smiled faintly. "I wanted to see if you could lead without going for blood." "Did I pass?" "You didn't bury him," she said. "That's more restraint than I would have had." I chuckled. "That was your job." Her face sobered. "He'll come after you now, you know. He won't accept losing quietly." "I'm counting on it," I said. That night, I sat in the courtyard of my apartment building, glass of wine, blanket across my lap, stars overhead. Angela was inside, reviewing contracts. Shelley had gone silent again, but I felt calm. For the first time in years, I didn't feel hunted. I felt ready. I pulled the single pearl from my pocket again. That old fragment of a life I used to want, used to beg for. I held it up against the starlight, then let it drop into the fountain. It hit the water with a quiet plink. Gone. The next morning, I opened my inbox to an anonymous message. No subject. No greeting. Just 5 words. "You shouldn't have trusted her. What does Shelley really want? And who sent the message? The storm. Laura thought she'd ended. May have only just begun." The anonymous message sat in my inbox like a thorn I couldn't ignore. "You shouldn't have trusted her." No header, no name, just those 5 words. It didn't scream. It didn't threaten. But somehow, it rattled me more than all of Brandon's fake smiles combined. I stared at the screen for a long time, fingers frozen above the keyboard. Then I clicked archive. If it was meant to shake me, it wouldn't get that satisfaction. Not tonight. Still, I didn't sleep. And by morning, I was calling Riley. She picked up on the second ring, voice groggy but alert. That bad, huh? I need a background check on Shelley Grant. Deep, no public record fluff. There was a beat of silence. You finally got suspicious. No, I said, rolling to the kitchen. Someone else did. Riley delivered by noon. Her birth name is Michelle Granger, she said, forwarding a PDF. She changed it legally in 2018. Nothing shady there, but she left a paper trail. What kind? Student loans unpaid until a mystery donor zeroed them out, a failed tech startup she never lists on her resume, and a 2-year engagement to a guy named Harrison Brill, who filed a restraining order 6 months before she left Boston. That name hit me like cold water. Harrison Brill was now the CEO of Stratuscore, a competitor circling the Hallstrom deal before we closed it. And that's not all, Riley continued. She withdrew from a $500K stock option buyout 3 days before voting in your favor. Guess who bought those shares anonymously through a shell firm? I didn't breathe. Brandon, I said. No, Riley said. Stratuscore. Angela and I met in my office that evening. She looked at the files, then at me. So Shelley's been playing both sides. Not exactly, I replied. She's been setting up her own board seat, one where she controls both narratives. Angela exhaled. Brilliant. And brutal. She voted for us to tip the scale, but she's hedging, using Stratus's backing to insert herself permanently. And Brandon? I shook my head, still scrambling in the dark. He thinks she betrayed him for me. But really, she betrayed us both for herself. Angela leaned forward. So what now? I opened the drawer, pulled out an envelope with our contingency clause drafted weeks ago, just in case any board member compromised the acquisition's ethical clause during the voting period. She made one mistake, I said. She signed the non-disclosure 14 hours before she sold data to Stratos. Angela's eyes lit up. So we can freeze her shares. Not just freeze, I said. We can void her board seat entirely. But here's the twist. I didn't use the clause. Not yet. Because for all her secrets, Shelley gave me one thing I never expected clarity. She showed me what ambition without loyalty looks like. And I wanted her to see what loyalty without fear could do in return. So I made a move no one saw coming. I called Shelley. She answered on the third ring. Laura. We need to talk. My office. Tonight? No lawyers. A pause. Is this war? Not if you answer one question honestly. That night, she walked in wearing steel gray her armor. Her smile was thin. But behind her eyes, I saw something else. Maybe guilt. Maybe respect. I handed her the folder. She read in silence. When she finally looked up, her mask dropped. You could destroy me with this. I said, but I won't if you tell me the truth. A long beat. Then Brandon promised me the CFO seat months ago. Then he tried to write me out of the deal once Hallstrom leaned toward you. So yes, I fed data to Stratus Leverage. And the vote. I voted with you because I believed in what you built. And I thought if I helped you win, I could still keep my place. I nodded slowly. And now, I want in for real this time. No side deals, no hedge funds. You'll have to earn your way back, I said. I know. And I'll never trust you the same way again. I wouldn't either. She reached into her purse, pulled out something small, laid it on the desk. The other half of the pearl necklace. I picked it up from the crash site. I didn't know if you'd want it. I looked at it, then at her, then picked it up and locked it in the desk drawer. Not forgiveness, just closure. We kept her on. Publicly, nothing changed. But I knew the truth now. And sometimes, knowing is enough. Meanwhile, Brandon made his move. He published a blog post anonymous, but obvious claiming unethical conduct behind the Hallstrom acquisition. He didn't name me, but he didn't need to. The subtext was poison. The press bit hard, but I bit harder. I released a video direct, raw, personal. I didn't attack. I told my story. The car crash, the hospital, the silence, the rebuilding, and the betrayal. I ended with, the American dream doesn't belong to the perfect. It belongs to the persistent. And I'm not done building mine yet. The video went viral. Over 1 million views in 48 hours. And a subpoena landed on Brandon's doorstep 3 days later for breach of non-compete and defamation. Riley texted me one line, Queen, behavior. I smiled. But deep down, I knew this wasn't the end. Because the higher you climb, the clearer your enemies become. And mine. We're finally showing their faces. Brandon is backed into a corner, but a desperate man is a dangerous one. And Laura's next challenge won't come from the boardroom. It started with a cracked windshield. Not a metaphor, not a symbol, a literal crack thin, webbed across the bottom edge of my Tesla's glass, like something small had hit it at high speed. At first, I assumed it was a rock, until I found the note tucked beneath the wiper blade. No envelope, just one sentence, printed in blocky black ink. You think you've won. You haven't. There was no name, but there didn't need to be. Brandon? I took the long way home that night. No podcast, no music, just the hum of tires, and the occasional flick of my turn signal echoing like Morse code inside my skull. Angela begged me to report it. Shelley said, he's unraveling. Let him destroy himself. Even Riley offered to dig deeper IP traces, surveillance sweeps. But I said no. I needed to handle this myself. Because for the first time since the hospital, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt like bait. The next day, I visited my mother. She lived in a modest 2-story house in Evanston, with hydrangeas that had seen better years, and a wind chime that never stopped singing in the wind. She answered the door in a robe, hair wrapped in a towel, holding a half-eaten fig bar. Well, look what the wind dragged back. I brought tea, I said, holding up the tin she liked. She took it, eyeing me. You're shaking. I wasn't, not visibly. But mothers know. We sat in the kitchen, old oak table between us. I poured the tea. She didn't ask why I was really there. So I told her. About Brandon. About Shelley. About the note. She listened without flinching. Then she said, Did you come here for advice or just comfort? Can't I want both? She smiled tired but proud. You always could. That was your power. You could be steel and softness in the same breath. I blinked back something sharp. Then why does it feel like I'm still bleeding? She reached across the table and took my hand. Because power doesn't stop the pain, baby. It just teaches you how to bleed on your own terms. That night, I found Brandon waiting outside my building. He looked like a shadow suit wrinkled, tie loose, hands buried deep in his coat. I've been trying to reach you, he said. You vandalized my car, then want to talk. That wasn't me, he said, too quickly. I tilted my head. No, then why are you here? He swallowed. To warn you. I almost laughed. Laura, he said, stepping closer, you don't understand. This thing with Stratos, it's bigger than me, bigger than Shelley. You walked into something you can't control. You mean the company I now run? He ignored the jab. Stratos wants your firm to implode. They don't care about you. They're using Shelley to destabilize you from the inside. I folded my arms. Why are you telling me this? Because I tried to play their game, he admitted. I leaked that blog. They promised me a board seat if you crumbled. But then, they cut me out too. I stared at him. You burned your bridges, then tried to swim across the river. He winced. I deserve that. No, I said. You deserve worse. But I'm too tired. I turned to go. His voice behind me, "They're coming for you, Laura. Not to compete, to erase." The next morning, Angela found a breach. Not just digital, a leak, internal. Documents meant for the board's eyes only were circulating online, edited, twisted. The comments beneath them weren't subtle. Entitled "Crippled CEO Uses Disability for Leverage. Classic diversity hire power play." I stared at the screen, jaw locked, chest tight. Angela slammed her fist on the table. "We sue them into the ground." Shelley said nothing. Her face was blank. "Stratos," I asked. "No question," Angela confirmed. "They're targeting your story. They can't destroy your numbers, so they'll destroy your name." I leaned back, pulse throbbing in my ears. This wasn't about business anymore. This was about dignity. That night, I took the pearl back out of the drawer. It felt heavier now. Not because it had changed. Because I booked a press interview live, unedited, no makeup team, no scripts. Just me. I sat across from the host, breathing slow. "Laura," she began, "some are calling your rise too fast, too polished. Others say you've weaponized your trauma. What do you say to that?" I looked straight into the camera. "I say the American dream isn't built on perfection. It's built on recovery." I didn't blink. "I say that being broken didn't make me weaker. It made me honest." Pause. "I didn't rise because I was lucky. I rose because I refused to be buried." The host nodded slowly. "And what would you say to the ones trying to bring you down now?" I smiled, tired, but sharp. "Come and try." The interview aired that night. By morning, #Rise Laura trended across platforms. And then, the call came. A masked number. When I picked up, a voice said, "You have 48 hours to step down, or we take down someone you love." Click. Silence. And just like that, I realized this wasn't about me anymore. They weren't aiming for my legacy. They were aiming for my blood. The message played over and over in my mind. "You have 48 hours to step down, or we take down someone you love." No name, no specifics. But when threats get that personal, your brain doesn't wait for details, it fills them in for you. Angela, Riley, my mother. Any one of them could be the target. And suddenly, power didn't feel like power anymore. It felt like liability. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I watched the city from my balcony, Chicago, pulsing like a slow heartbeat below, oblivious to my fear. The pearl sat in my palm again, its smooth surface catching the streetlight. I thought about the woman I used to be. Fragile, hungry for approval, desperate for love. She wouldn't have survived this war. But I wasn't her anymore. So I made a call. Not to the police. Not to a lawyer. I called Shelley. She met me in the office, no security, no PR team, just two women surrounded by glass and ambition. "I assume you got the same message," I said. She nodded, jaw tight. "Stratos is escalating. They think fear will do what lawsuits couldn't." "They're not wrong," I said quietly. "Fear is efficient." "But they miscalculated one thing," she said. "We don't break the same way men do." We worked through the night, Angela joining after midnight, Riley looping in encrypted data from her remote bunker of a home. Our plan had 3 parts. Expose Stratus Corps' private coercion ring through a whistleblower Shelley once mentored. Launch a surprise partnership with Hallstrom's European branch, shielding our board from domestic pressure. Pre-announce our IPO, beating Stratos to market by 48 hours. High risk, high reward. If we failed, we'd be swallowed. But if we pulled it off, we'd become untouchable. The whistleblower agreed to testify. Shelley met her in a parking garage, old school cloak and dagger. The woman was nervous, shaking as she handed over a USB drive. "They promised my daughter's tuition," she whispered. When I refused, my tires were slashed. My husband got audited out of nowhere. Shelley nodded. You did the right thing. The drive contained everything: audio threats, fake contracts, proof of blackmail. Angela had tears in her eyes by the time she finished reading. They've been doing this for years, she whispered. Not anymore, I said. The partnership press release went out at 9:00 a.m. Hallstrom Europe issued a glowing endorsement. Our phones blew up with investors, reporters, and 2 national news anchors asking for interviews. And then came the IPO leak. Riley had embedded a time-sensitive code into our filing. It sent a public ping the second Stratos attempted to duplicate our framework. By the time they tried 5 hours after we went live, our offering was already trending on Wall Street's on-watch list. Their move had backfired. That night, Brandon showed up again. Not outside my apartment. Not begging. He walked into our office unannounced. He looked smaller than before. Not physically, but spiritually. You beat them, he said. We protected what we built, I corrected. He nodded. I didn't think you'd go this far. You never saw what I was capable of, I said, because you never looked past your own reflection. He swallowed. I'm leaving the country, taking a buyout offer from Stratos' European arm. They're exiling me softly. I raised an eyebrow. And you want what, my blessing? No, he said, just to say sorry. I let the silence hang long enough to sting. Then I said, I don't need your apology. I needed it 3 years ago. He nodded once and left. Weeks passed. We won the lawsuit. The SEC opened an investigation into Stratos Core. Our IPO oversubscribed by 160%. Angela got her promotion. Shelley started a nonprofit mentorship program for underrepresented women in finance. Riley. She bought a vineyard, said it helped her chill her paranoia. And me? I stood on the rooftop of the Hallstrom building one night, overlooking the lake, pearl necklace finally clasped around my neck. Whole again. Not because everything was perfect, but because I had survived what tried to end me and built something stronger in its place. Let me tell you something about revenge. It's not always fire. Sometimes it's architecture. Silent, enduring, built brick by brick from everything they thought you'd never recover from. It doesn't roar. It stands. If you're watching this, and someone has written you off, if they told you were too broken, too late, too small, too much, don't listen. They don't get the final word. You do. And if you ever find yourself alone at rock bottom, holding nothing but a cracked dream and a memory that hurts like a bruise, remember this. I was there once. And now I own the building. Comment I rise if you've ever had to rebuild. And subscribe if you're ready to take your story back. Because this isn't just my story. It's ours, and we're not done yet.